Doesn't it feel like the highly anticipated album from A$AP Rocky called Don't Be Dumb is never gonna drop? I mean, if you're like me, you've only been hearing about this album for a few years, and it's still yet to drop. Meanwhile, A$AP Rocky is premiering new fashion lines, he's dating Rihanna, he's having children, all things that a grown man should be doing. But one thing he has not given us is that new album, and I'm starting to lose hope. And if you're like me, yeah, that album's probably never gonna drop. By the way, guys, my name is Uche. This is my channel. I make videos like this every week, or at least I'm planning to. So if you enjoy the conversation, if you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button. It's gonna help me grow. Hit that like button. It's gonna push it out to more people. Now let's dive into this content. Okay, first, let's talk about initial announcements and early hype of Don't Be Dumb. Now, you could probably go as far back as 2022 when A$AP Rocky actually determined and was quoted in saying the album was finished. Now look, I know guys work on albums well in advance, so the album being finished in 2022 and still not being out in 2025 is not a huge deal, but hype was pretty high at that point. And at that time, you know, there was a lot of heavy hitting names that were actually being associated with this album. You had Pharrell Williams as a guest / collaborator. You had Mike Dean. You had Madlib, Metro Boomin, The Alchemist, and the list goes on, guys. You know, so at the end of the day, if we want to talk about early hype of Don't Be Dumb, the names and the list of celebrities / collaborators was extremely long. And let's get into the release date, which seems to change time and time again. You know, you had first announcements saying that the album was going to come out in August 30th, 2024. Then it was pushed to fall 2024, and then early 2025, and now potentially summer. And hey, at this rate, I think I'll be going bald before this album drops, guys. And I have hair still. Thanks. Like a full head. Yeah. Let's also bring this back to the fact that let's keep in mind that his last album came out in 2018, which was Testing. It was a big release. He had a few huge songs. Praise the Lord with Skepta was a really big single off that album. And before that, he was pretty well known for crafting amazing bodies of work that people really could see the potential and greatness in what he was able to fuse trap in Southern music and Harlem, New York jiggy rap, and all the likes of what comes with this hip hop thing. And so when we get into A$AP Rocky's trajectory, we can't do it without talking about the singles that he has dropped during this album rollout for Don't Be Dumb, which in my opinion, guys, has been very subpar, but let's get into it. All right, so first, you could argue that the first single from this rollout was the 2023 release called Riot, which he featured Pharrell Williams as a part of that. You know, I thought it was a cool single. You know, I don't think it really moved the needle much, but at the end of the day, you know, A$AP Rocky was able to show his collaborative and artistic skills and mesh that pretty well with a Pharrell produced beat. And also, you know, Pharrell does what he does, and I mean, who gets mad at Pharrell? So I give him credit for Riot single, but at the end of the day, let's move on. Then he released Hijack, which honestly, out of all of the singles that he dropped, which we're gonna get into, I thought this was probably the strongest single that he released. It came out August 2nd, 2024. It featured Jessica Pratt, and I felt like that song had a very strong theme. You know, it was hard hitting. A$AP was confident. He was really getting in his bag, and I felt like that was a very strong single that could have propelled him into the limelight had he kept that momentum. But hey, I guess you guys are seeing the theme of this. He dropped his foot off the gas, and he put another single out called Taylor Swift, which, all right, let me stop hating, guys. Like, that was a pretty good single as well. That one came out a few weeks later on August 30th, 2024, which actually received a Grammy nomination for the best music video. So shout out to him, man. He had some wins along the way, but you know, what would have been a 2-song stretch in his album rollout where he's putting out singles that, you know, had some flavor to them and could get people excited. You know, he did what he's been doing all throughout this rollout, which is sort of keep fans guessing and confuse us a bit. But let's keep it moving. He put out another single called Ruby Rosary. If you guys guys remember that, on September 6th, 2024, that one actually featured J. Cole, my favorite rapper of all time, by the way. If you guys didn't know, just stop the apologies, my boy. But anyway, that song was really unorthodox. Like, I feel like if you guys heard that song, like, you know, of course, J. Cole did his thing. I thought ASAP was spitting as well. You know, he talked about being fresh to death. He really got into his bag, but I wasn't a huge fan of the tempo and pace of that record. You know, it almost felt like it needed dubstep remix from Calvin Harris. Like, you know, it needed some energy. That song kind of put me to sleep a bit. But here's the biggest gap, guys, because after that song, Ruby Rose, he dropped Pray for the Gang featuring KC on July 4th. What a day. 2025. What a huge gap between the last single that he dropped with J. Cole. And this is where things get a really, really odd and tricky, because he put the music video out and it was immediately removed for reasons that still remain unclaimed and unexplained. You know, fans got on him on Twitter saying, hey, like, where'd the song go? You know, people are saying he fell off. You know, there's even this new stat that keeps getting reported, which by the way, I hate. I'm probably going to make a video about this at some point in the future, where people are now accumulating first day streams, where they were saying, hey, this thing only streamed 236K streams, which I remember watching a clip where Academics was clowning ASAP for that small feat. Yeah, I mean, these have been the only singles that have dropped, guys. And I guess there's been some standouts here and there, but at the end of the day, I can't say that these are strong enough for a album rollout and a guy who hasn't dropped an album in 7 years. Okay, so here's the part of the video where I gotta cut ASAP a bit of bail, cut him some slack a bit. He did go through what seemed like a very tumultuous legal battle where he was accused of assaulting his childhood friend, former ASAP member, ASAP Relly. He took it to trial. He beat trial, which was actually a surprise to a lot of people, considering the fact that he was actually given a plea deal, which he turned down. So shout out to him for beating that trial. And, you know, you can imagine somebody going through something like that. That probably was a lot of stress. Homeboy was probably not thinking about music, rightfully so. And so, yeah, I mean, again, you know, this is a video about the delays and what he's been doing to confuse fans, but at the end of the day, he did go through a really big legal battle, and I'm sure that took a lot out of him as well. And then, of course, you know, he's dating Rihanna, of all people, and they have a few children at this point. And so, who knows, man? Like, is he even focused on music, guys? Like, you see these guys at fashion shows every damn month, I feel like, and they look happy as hell together. They holding hands, they kissing babies, they taking pictures. They're practically superheroes in the eyes of E! News and some of these other pop stations, you know what I mean? Like, just like Rihanna, ASAP Rocky might be at a point where he's just not focused on music. Like, do we think it's impossible for two people who were once musicians to get together and just not give a damn about music anymore? I feel like if there was ever a couple where we would accuse them of that, it would be these two, honestly. And we blame Rihanna for that, because she also hasn't dropped an album since her last project, I believe back in 2017, excuse me. And so, you know, I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, you talk about the fashion, even the movies. Apparently he has a new movie coming up with Denzel Washington that's set to drop at some point, I believe in September, I want to say. So, yeah, I mean, the guy is booked and busy, man. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to make any remarks about, you know, this guy being a lazy person at all. Like, he's clearly got a lot going on, but in terms of this new album, it almost appears that it's just not a priority. And I'm only giving you that based on the lack of music and the lack of consistency that we've seen from ASAP over these last few years, leading up until summer of 2025, or allegedly when Don't Be Dumb is supposed to drop. Now let's talk about what to expect from the album. It's really hard to even pinpoint artistically and musically what he's even going to provide, just because all the singles that I mentioned earlier, they all sound different. You know, they all have different producers. I have literally no idea what the thematic theme concept is gonna be. Yeah, I mean, it's for you guys, man. I got a question for y'all. Do you still care about ASAP Rocky's music? You know, when the album drops, are you gonna be clowning him for his first week sales like everybody else does? Or better yet, and by the way, hey, Rocky, don't kill me. This wasn't me. Drake on Family Matters said, you probably got to have a kid again before you think about dropping any shit again. Or how about when he said, you know, even when you do drop, people gonna say it's mid again. You know what I mean? And so again, by the way, Rocky, these were not my words. This is Drake. No beef. It's not me. It was Drake. But I think there was some validity to a lot of the words that even Drake pointed out in their own personal battle, of course. Again, Rocky, that wasn't me. Sorry, I apologize. But people have been saying this on Twitter and other forms of media about Rocky in recent past. And it got me thinking, do people even care about what they're going to really receive once that album does drop? It leaves me very curious. I feel like he has not done a great job at retaining the fans' attention. He hasn't done a great job at marketing. He hasn't done a great job at any point in this rollout, guys. And I'm trying not to be negative. And this is also coming from a guy who's a really big A$AP Rocky fan back in the day. So I want this album to be good. You know, I really do. But at the same time, man, I just hope he's not washed, man. I really hope he's not washed. But what do you guys think, man? Is A$AP Rocky washed? Does he still have a lot left in the tank? Will Don't Be Dumb ever drop? I don't know, man. Listen, y'all let me know in the comments down below. My name is Uche. This is my first video on YouTube. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button. It will help me a lot. Hit the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.